The Taoiseach saw the horrific video of a 6-year-old girl burning in Gaza. Her name is Ward. Thankfully, she actually survived, but her family did not, and about 20,000 other Palestinian children in Gaza did not. It's time for action to go with the words. It's time to stop the overflights. It's time to ban the sale of Israeli war bonds, and it's time for full sanctions on goods and services. And we need action from the government on this, and we need it now.
Taoiseach, even as it commits genocide in Gaza, you refuse to sanction Israel. Even as Israel massacres thousands of children, burns families, starves a refugee population, they are allowed to act with impunity. Your claim that Sinn Féin's bill, which aims to stop the Irish Central Bank overseeing the sale of Israeli war bonds across Europe, your claim that that is incompatible with EU law is utterly, utterly bogus, cynical and bogus. We have advice from the Oireachtas services here which confirms that the bill is in compliance with EU and international law, in compliance with Irish law, in compliance with the Irish Constitution, and you know this well. This legislation to stop the overseeing of the sale of Israeli war bonds is not only necessary, it is absolutely urgent, Taoiseach, and I challenge you to come clean, to be honest and to make good on your vow to do everything within your power to stop the genocide. Ireland should not be complicit in the funding of a genocide against innocent Palestinian men, women and children.
First of all, this government and I have made it very, very clear that as far as we're concerned, Israel has and is committing a war crime in terms of the weaponisation of humanitarian aid going into Gaza. And in terms of the blockade and the prevention of the very basic necessities of life going into Gaza. We have been very proactive from the very beginning. First, I'd say, a country in the EU to call for a ceasefire, a release of all hostages and the surge in humanitarian aid into Gaza. We were instrumental in persuading people at the European Union not to take aid away from UNRWA, but rather to increase support for UNRWA, and we effectively and successfully enabled that to happen. We intervened in the South African case under the Genocidal Convention in a very comprehensive, impactful way, as opposed to any political showboating that people might have advocated for earlier. We also were key in terms of supporting the motions at the United Nations in respect to the advisory opinion that led to the ICJ judgment. Ireland has been very proactive. However, in terms of the bill that is before us, you know as well, it is simply unworkable.
Deputy Ivana Bacik, please stand for your question. If you're going to continue in this vein, there will be at least 3 deputies who won't get in. Deputy Ivana Bacik.
Taoiseach, we must do more on Gaza to stop the horror. Yesterday we learnt of the horrific situation of Dr. Ala al-Najjar, a doctor in Gaza who was working to save lives in a hospital when she learnt that 9 of her 10 children had been killed under Israeli bombardment. Her husband, another doctor, critically ill, 1 child left alive, and so many thousands of children left orphaned or killed by this devastating genocide by Israel. Tomorrow we will use our private members' time for Labour to call on you to move a motion at the UN General Assembly seeking a sustainable peace and international peacekeeping force in Gaza. I look forward to that debate. But I do ask you, Taoiseach, to do more. We see today the Taoiseach has sought approval for a new Occupied Territories Bill, but it cannot represent a watering down of Francis Black's original bill, which we in Labour co-sponsored. We do need to see that the bill includes trade and services. We do need to do all we can in our power to stop the horrific war crimes that Israel is carrying out on the people of Gaza.
First of all, we will not be opposing the motion in respect of actions at the United Nations, because we're fundamentally multilateralist, and we've worked on the Gaza issue with many like-minded states within the United Nations, and many of the votes on the Middle East reflect that approach by Ireland, and certainly we've worked with the Arab partner states in terms of a peace process within the Middle East. We supported them and helped in respect of formulating a peace plan in the early part of this war, and unfortunately it didn't get more widespread support from the international community at the time, including the US, which I think was problematic. We did recognise the state of Palestine, Shortly afterwards, we were accused, well, that was just symbolic, even though everybody in here had asked for that. The Occupied Territories Bill is coming before, will come before the Dáil. That in itself won't change Israel. Like, we need to be realistic as well.
Thank
so we
you,
need
Taoiseach.
a collective
Deputy McDonald,
approach.
please.
We are at European Union level now, hopefully, even though I'm not,
Thank you,
I'm cautious in
Time
terms
is
of
up.
saying it, but in terms of the
Thank you,
EU-Israel
Taoiseach. Deputy
Association Agreement,
Sinead
that is now
Gibney.
under review by the External Action
Sinead
Service.
Gibney.
Taoiseach, on his way into Cabinet today, the Taoiseach said that people wanted more than fine words on Gaza. They want action. And I could not agree more, which is why I can't understand why it has taken until today for the Taoiseach to bring to Cabinet legislation to ban trade with the occupied territories. We're now nearly 6 months into this government. Does that represent urgency or strong action? And as if that wasn't bad enough, the government has signalled that it will not include services in the bill, which would mean that a major component of trade would continue to flow even after this bill was enacted. Gaza and its people are being erased before our eyes, and I am deeply concerned that this government is dragging its heels with this crucial piece of legislation. The Dáil is in recess for the summer from mid-July, so we are running out of time. Will the bill be enacted by then? And if not, will you agree to sit during recess for as long as it takes to ensure that the Occupied Territories Bill becomes law?
Just for the record, there is no major trade between Ireland and the occupied territories. Just let that be the record. There's very little, actually.
Deputy,
It's
not a back and forth.
The point is, it is a symbolic move, and that's important.
Deputy,
and that's
please.
important in itself. But I just wanted, because we recognise the state of Palestine with Norway and with Spain, and as soon as we did that, all those who had called for it then sort of changed the tune a couple of weeks later and said, oh, too little, too late, not much significance. My point is, we have done very practical things. Probably the most impactful thing has been on the humanitarian side with UNRWA, notwithstanding Israel's relentless hostility to UNRWA and the very significant increase in funding. Our work on the ICJ judgment, the Attorney General went there and gave an oral submission. If you ask the Palestinian Authority, I mean, they will tell you their appreciation and acknowledgement of the consistency of the Irish message on an independent Palestinian state.
As you know, there's a genocide ongoing in Gaza right now. The Irish Central Bank is facilitating the sale of Israeli bonds. I repeat that, the Irish Central Bank is facilitating bonds that are funding genocide. You are the Taoiseach of this country. You are the leader. Will you intervene with the Central Bank immediately? Speak to the Governor, ask them to immediately stop Ireland facilitating the funding of genocide. It's straightforward. It's an action we can take. It's something we can be a leader on. It is real action. Israel will feel it. Can you imagine if we think back in the World War II and the Irish Central Bank was facilitating the funding of the Nazi regime? What would you have done then? And I think that should guide your action now.
Thank you, Deputy.
Please, I'm asking you to intervene.
Thank you, Deputy.
Stop the Irish Central Bank facilitating the sale of Israeli bonds.
First of all, the legislation that has been tabled by Sinn Féin is simply unworkable. It has been written in a manner that in no shape or form could ever be made workable. And the Minister for Finance has a very clear view on that in terms of its workability. It doesn't oppose any crime in Israel. It doesn't focus on Israel at all. But it focuses on individual 5, 10, 15 years ago who could have engaged in sort of purchasing or whatever financial products connected to Israel. And no matter when they bought them, the bill would make it a crime. So there's huge issues with the bill in terms of its workability, its legality, essentially.
Deputy, please. Deputy,
but we were
Deputy
intervening.
Marie Sherlock.
We will continue to intervene in other ways. And
Thank you,
I think the big
Deputy
focus,
Marie Sherlock.
the big focus we have at the moment is the EU-Israel Association Agreement, where
Thank
we
you,
think at European Union level has far greater influence
Deputy
if we can get an EU response
Deputy Marie
to issues
Sherlock.
of this kind.
Michael.